Hello and welcome to another Health Essentials podcast. I'm John Horton, your host. If you're a Monday to Friday worker, odds are your two favorite days of the week begin with the letter S. Saturdays and Sundays are where the fun lives, after all. It's a 2-day stretch where you can focus on what you want to do without clocking in at your job. But weekends eventually end, and that can be tough to take for some folks. It can result in what's known as the Sunday Scaries, best described as a growing angst about the start of another work week. We're going to explore this fear today with psychologist Kia-Rai Prewitt. She's one of the many experts at Cleveland Clinic who pop into our weekly podcast to help us get a little more out of life. So with that, let's find out what we can do to help Mondays land a little more gently. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Prewitt. Glad to have you here, even if it is to talk about something that terrifies a lot of people.
Thank you, John. I'm so glad to be here.
So our topic today is something known as the Sunday Scaries, kind of an alliterative way of expressing the dread many folks fear as the weekend winds down and they start thinking about returning to work. The more official term for this is anticipatory anxiety. Can you break down what's kind of going on in this situation?
Sure. So the Sunday Scaries is really common for a lot of people. And like you said, it's anticipatory anxiety, meaning that you are anticipating something that could happen. For a lot of people, the work week is very hectic. And so the weekend is a really nice time to relax. We are a very busy society, so sometimes the weekend can also be very hectic. And so you may not ever feel like you have enough time to unwind. And next thing you know, it's time to prepare for work again. And so it's really just that anticipation of a stressful either day or a stressful week.
Yeah. And that anticipation is always the worst.
Yes.
It always seems to hit harder than what it normally does.
For sure. The anticipation is like that worry, right? Like you're imagining that something bad could happen. You're imagining that you could get overwhelmed. You might imagine that you might have an email waiting for you, or maybe you didn't finish something before the week ended. And so it's waiting on you when you log in on Monday morning.
Yeah. And I'd say it is just stunning how many people seem to deal with this. I saw a LinkedIn survey that found that 3 out of 4 people, 75% of employees experience Sunday Scaries in some way. Is it really that common?
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me. Just even looking at the patients that I see, it is very common that we are talking about work-related stress. And so having 3 out of 4 people anticipating the work week really sounds about accurate, just even given my patients. And so, I think just people just have so much on them and so many different responsibilities, never feeling like you've ever really completely finished your tasks. And so it makes sense to me that a lot of people will be worried about this and struggle with this.
Well, in case my boss is listening, I love coming in every Monday. So, no worries from me here.
That's great. You're that 1 out of 4.
Yeah, I can be that one. So what are some of the signs that you might be dealing with a case of the Sunday Scaries? How is it going to kind of present itself to you?
Sure. So, as you are getting closer to the beginning of the work week, you may notice that it's harder to enjoy yourself. So maybe on a Sunday afternoon, you plan to hang out with the family or maybe read a book and do something by yourself, but you find yourself thinking about what you have to do when you get to work on Monday. So if you can't focus on, what you're doing in the moment and you're more thinking about like the long list of tasks that you have to do or who you might have to talk to, then that's when you're probably dealing with the Sunday Scaries.
Now, what you just mentioned is very much mental. Like, you just start thinking about those things that are coming up. Does it also kind of present in just actual like physical ways where it kind of grips your whole body?
So for some people, their anxiety can get so high where they actually have panic attacks. And so usually with a panic attack, it may come out of nowhere. Whereas for other people, maybe because they are thinking about something that causes them a lot of worry. And so they're going to have like physiological signs. They may notice like pain in their bodies. They may notice a headache, a lot of tension like in the neck and shoulders as well is very common when people have anxiety. You may talk about it a lot. Again, it might be hard to focus. So those are also some other things that you may see.
I'd imagine that can also kind of interfere with your sleep, because I know whenever you have things that are in your head or, you start worrying about it, you cannot catch those Z's.
Yeah, that's actually really common for a lot of people, and that's something I talk about a lot. I ask people like, "Is your mind racing?" And so you may find, like you said, having difficulty falling asleep because you're thinking about all the things that you have to do. For some people, they're able to fall asleep, but if they wake up in the middle of the night, they may find themselves thinking about, what they have to do at work.
I mean, it sounds like so much of this is just, as we all do at times, you kind of, you work yourself up and you kind of get
Mhm.
that racing heartbeat and you can, even
Yes.
start sweating. I read one thing where they're like, they even tie Sunday Scaries. People have heart attacks, which it's hard to believe that something works you up that much. Just this anticipation, this dread of coming in on Monday.
Yeah, I think when it gets to that level, it's probably because of some other thing that is happening at work, that person is anticipating. So if they're experiencing some type of workplace bullying, or if they're anticipating layoffs, or maybe they have to be the one laying off someone, or they have to have a difficult conversation, or they have an environment that's not really friendly or collegial, right? So like it's possible that there's probably some stressors, some major stressors at work, that they may feel like they don't have any control over. That's probably leading to that severity of anxiety.
Can Sunday Scaries even kind of push somebody toward symptoms of depression and things like that?
Yeah. So if you are dealing with some type of uncontrolled anxiety, and it could be situational, right? So like maybe when you're at home on the weekends, you're just fine. But maybe once you get to work, you notice that you're anxious all the time. You notice that you're unmotivated. You might feel depressed. Some people feel depressed because they are anxious, or because they're unsatisfied, in their work. So yes, it's very possible that it could lead to depression as well.
So what sets all this off? I mean, is it really just work related and we don't want to be at the office, or does it go a little deeper than that?
I think it depends on the person. For some people, they have what we call generalized anxiety. And so, with generalized anxiety, there's a lot of worry about a lot of different things. So, work just might be one of those things that they can be anxious about, whereas for others, it might just be situational. So, I really think it depends on the person. A lot of times, what works people up, as you said, is just how we're thinking about things, right? So, if we're thinking worst case scenario, a lot of times it will cause fear for us, or if we assume that something bad is going to happen, or that we're not going to have control over what happens to us. We like to have control. And so, if there's something that we feel like we might not have control over, again, based off of what you're telling yourself, it could really lead to that anxiety reaction.
Yeah, it really sounds like the Sunday Scaries can be the sort of thing that can spiral on somebody
Mhm.
too. And you
Mhm.
start worrying about it, and then you start worrying a little more about it, and then pretty soon you just go into a full-fledged, you're down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and at that point, that's when I talk to people about, well, let's see what else is going on, because it also might be another stressor that has not been addressed, and it's just taking root on a Sunday as your anticipated work. So maybe you have something else that you need to deal with, and you haven't had the opportunity to deal with that, or maybe you don't have the tools, or the resources. And so it might be that it's presenting as like the Sunday Scaries because you have to go to work. You have, finances is important, right? And
Yeah.
so for some people, missing work is not an option. And so there might be this anticipatory anxiety about that because it takes away maybe from time to address other stressors that might be happening.
All right. Well, since nobody should live in fear, let's talk about how we might be able to tame the Sunday Scaries. Can you kind of give us some tips to calm this internal chaos?
So sometimes it's prevention, right? And so, I always talk to people about prioritizing, so if it's, maybe you are prioritizing doing a project, right? And so it may be figuring out like, are you making everything a priority? And maybe you need to shift your priorities and maybe try to focus on one thing at a time, so that you don't have this anticipation I can't talk to
I stumbled over it too. It's going around today. I know. I was like, it just anticipatory anxiety.
right.
It doesn't feel right
There we
coming
go.
out.
I said, let me take a pause. Like, wait, that is what I meant to say. And so, yeah, so you might have to, prioritize, your schedule. And for some people, it means maybe wrapping up things, at the end of the work week so that you aren't as anxious when you start the work week on Monday. The other thing I talk to people about is sometimes the work is never going to be finished. There's always work that has to be done. And so at some point, you just have to stop. And so, just kind of knowing that there's always going to be a continuous workflow and accepting that sometimes can be helpful. And then I also tell people just to practice mindfulness. So mindfulness is really just trying to focus and be present in the moment. And so when you notice you're worrying about the future, you might be worrying about something that you can't control, worrying about something that might not even happen, or you are assuming worst case scenario, kind of catch yourself and try to bring yourself back to the present and say, you know what, on Monday, I'll deal with that if I need to. Right now, let me just focus being here.
Yeah, with that whole concept of mindfulness, which I know we've talked about on this podcast multiple times, do you even advise people to maybe even like make that part of your routine? Like
Okay.
if you have this problem on Sunday, schedule in some yoga or a walk through the woods or something like that, just to kind of clear your head and find that relaxation.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Mindfulness, there's so many different ways to practice mindfulness, which is great. And so for some people, practicing mindfulness is just taking a few minutes just to be still and just focus on their breathing. And when you're still, you might be able to notice like your thoughts and your feelings, maybe how your body feels. For other people, mindfulness could be taking a walk and just really paying attention to your surroundings, right? And so, yes, I think that's a great idea to practice it before you get into a situation where you're already anxious. It's like if you're already practicing it, it's a lot easier to put it into place in those situations where you might have that anticipatory anxiety.
What about just even staying busy on Sundays? I
Mhm.
know my days disappear with yard work and all the other stuff that kind of comes up. Grocery shopping for the week, all that. Can that kind of help take your mind off of what's waiting for you at work on Monday?
Um, sure, if it's a good distraction, right? So, in some ways, you're talking about distraction. For some people, yes, finding time to focus on other things that bring them joy can be really helpful to manage anxiety. Whereas for others, it might increase their anxiety if they feel like they're running out of time, right? And so, if your weekend is really busy and you're booked, running around, doing errands, maybe you have kids or you're a caregiver. So you're taking folks to doctor's appointments, sporting events, maybe you have events to go to for yourself, right? So sometimes that actually can create more anxiety if you're booked that
Yeah.
whole weekend. But if it's for a distraction and something that brings you joy, you feel like you can be present, I think that actually can be very helpful.
See, this is where every single person is different. So you have to
Yes.
find,
Yep.
sounds like a lot of this is finding that key
Yes.
that will help you kind of unlock this and really, release that problem.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. So what might work for one person may not work for someone else. And so I think it really is just finding your niche or finding your area, really trying to focus on, what is it that I can do so that I'm not so worried about the work week. And really, I think that mindfulness will help you do some self-reflection too. So
Yeah.
really maybe asking yourself some questions like, what is it about going to work on Monday that's causing me to feel this way?
Well, and that's one of the things I think there's a point where you need to be honest with yourself and look at what the cause of this might be. I mean, is it just
Mhm.
that you're anxious about something going on at work or a meeting, or is it something bigger? I mean, you have job burnout, or
Yes.
should you be getting that resume polished up because the environment there has gotten a little toxic?
Mhm.
Could this be a sign that you need to look a little deeper too?
Oh, for sure. And that's a question I ask people too. Are you happy at your job or what's going on? Because sometimes people don't necessarily have an awareness that they're experiencing some type of stress at work or, like you said, burnout. And so, yes, I think taking that time to reflect. So if it's, I don't like who I'm working with, or I actually don't feel challenged at work, or I feel like I need, some type of promotion, right? So I think just exploring, and really digging deeper can be very helpful in addressing anxiety.
Sometimes you don't even realize that, as you said. It's
Mhm.
almost like that. It's that fraud, the boiling water sort of analogy, where it's like the temperature keeps going up around you, and you get used to it. And it's not until you leave that you go, man, that was really not a good setup for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I see that a lot because I'll have people say, "Oh, I need to work on how I react in situations," and then I start asking more questions. I'm like, "Well, actually, I think this is a pretty normal reaction given, what you just described." And then the other side of it, like you said, some people are just so used to dealing with certain situations and being on edge, that they don't realize that that's actually not normal.
I even saw some tips when you look online for this, where they talk about making like Monday morning special. Like if you're that consistently worried about it, always plan to stop and pick up, a special coffee
Yeah, yeah,
or
mhm,
have something
mhm.
nice for breakfast. I mean, are those just kind of mind games we kind of can play with ourselves, or just does it kind of take the edge off a little?
I think if you have time in your schedule to do that, sure. I think you do have to sometimes tell yourself like it's going to be okay, or this is going to be a terrific Monday, or because sometimes Mondays can be so hectic anyway, and it takes a lot of adjustment. And so I'll do this with some of the staff in my office. I'll just send a message like "Happy Monday," it's just, or I might tell myself on the way to work like it's going to be a great week, or I'm going to do whatever I can to make this a great day. But yeah, I think if that works for people, sure, go for it.
I'm glad to hear I'm not the only person who sends out happy Monday
Yeah.
messages, because I do the same thing. And it's some of it, and I feel like some of it is a mindset where you just want
Uh-huh.
to go,
Yep.
you know
Yep.
what, man, we're back. It's going to be good. And,
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
also a big Friday guy
Yeah,
too.
me too.
So,
Yep.
I'm playing both ends.
Dancing emojis. Yeah, I'm a happy Friday person. And some people might get annoyed with it, but whatever. If it works for you, I think you should do it. And I think people appreciate it, right? Because it just kind of normalizes like how a lot of people feel when they come in on Mondays. And so when somebody says like, "Hey, let's have a happy Monday," I think people are collectively willing to say, "Yeah, okay, we're gonna shift our mindset." And then, like you said, the Friday, it's like, "Yes, we made it. We just got to get through this day." So I think that's great.
Well, a lot of these suggestions that you threw out there really make a lot of sense. The mindfulness, and they just seem like good care items.
Yes. Hmm. Hmm.
Taking care of your thoughts and just getting yourself in a good spot, getting enough sleep, exercise. I mean, all those things kind of fit into just a healthier person. Um,
Well,
so if you do all of these things and you're still, those Sunday scaries just will not go away. Um, what's the next step?
yeah, so I would consider, so one, it could be talking to a friend about it or a family member, to see if that could help. But if you're noticing like, okay, I'm talking to my friends and family about it and I'm still having this anxiety, then I would definitely recommend talking to a professional. For some people, it may just be talking to their primary care provider about it, and seeing like if maybe, some type of mental health support would be appropriate, whether that's talk therapy, or even medication. If you already have a mental health provider, I would definitely talk directly with them about it.
Yeah, it sounds like, as we said, there's a huge scope that we're talking about here, where you could be a little nervous, or it could be the sign of something more going on. So
Mhm.
it sounds like you really got to do a little analyzation of what's going on with you, and then take those steps.
Yeah, and that's part of mindfulness too, and self care. Is really stopping, right, and paying
Yeah.
attention to yourself and noticing, like, am I noticing I'm irritable all the time? Am I noticing that I have headaches a lot, or do I have a lot of tension in my body? Am I having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep? Am I like snapping at people? Irritable all the time, right? So if you're starting to notice these things, or if somebody gives you feedback, like, "Hey, I noticed you seem to be on edge a lot," those could be signs that this is a little bit more serious.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Pruitt, hopefully our chat will help people turn the Sunday scaries into some Sunday smiles. But before we say our goodbyes, do you have any other words of wisdom to share to kind of help folks gear up for a new work week?
Yeah. So I would say when you notice that you're starting to talk a lot about work, especially on that Sunday, just really try whatever you can to just refocus yourself into the present, connect with the people around you. If you're home by yourself, maybe take a walk, call a friend, watch your favorite movie, but do something, that brings you joy. The other thing is, kind of reminding yourself, like, okay, some of the things that I might be thinking about, it may not be that bad, or maybe I can ask someone for help. So it's really just, I think, being mindful of what it is that's happening and doing something to take care of yourself in the moment.
That sounds like great advice. And I can tell you when this next weekend hits, I'm going to clear my mind of all work stuff until I clock back in on Monday. So,
Good luck.
Dr. Prewitt, thanks so much for coming in, and I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's understandable to be bummed about a weekend coming to a close, but that doesn't mean those final hours should turn into a Sunday Scaries with worries about the work week ahead. So take a deep breath, do a little self-care, and focus on the positives, including the reality that another weekend is just 5 days away. If you liked what you heard today, please hit the subscribe button and leave a comment to share your thoughts. Till next time, be well.